2NURFM, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.
Well, whether you're a fan of the cooking programs or not, that doesn't matter, but I'm unashamedly a fan of Nigella, and I've got to say I like the lady even more. She's come out in the paper over the week and said there are times when you need a slice of cake. You don't eat it every day, but life has to be balanced and not too restricted. Professor Clare Collins, do you echo the domestic goddess's words there?
I echo that we should enjoy our foods, and I also echo that spending more time in the kitchen is one way to actually cheer yourself up and a really good way to enjoy eating more good, wholesome, homemade food.
It is a good start, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
The thing is, she tends to midnight binge, though. Have you noticed that in the programs? It's late at night and the light goes on and she goes down to the fridge and helps herself.
And there's a name for that. It's called night eating syndrome. There's even a questionnaire to measure if you're a secret night eater.
Oh, dear.
But what I wanted to talk about today, and it does kind of bring that in a little bit more because a lot of those cooking shows use lots of fat, and people are really confused. Should I eat fat? Should I eat butter? Should I not eat butter? Should I eat margarine? All of that.
Well, even over the weekend, it came out, there's a story in the papers that butter is now healthy for you and you should be eating it.
Yeah, well, you know what my comment is? People think butter, it's so natural, but you show me one cow that squirts out butter pats looking like that. Butter is still a processed food as well. But what's amazing is if you look at the healthiest eating patterns in the world, they're poles apart in terms of the fat content. So we have the Mediterranean diet eaten by 21 countries around the Mediterranean, versions of it. And then we have the Japanese on the island of Okinawa, where they have the largest number of people over the age of 100. They have a very low-fat diet. Mediterranean diet's very high in fat. But surprisingly, they share some common elements.
I thought you said you were going to break the confusion.
Yes, I am, because I think what it tells you is you can have a high-fat diet. It's about fat quality. So the fat in the Mediterranean diet comes from olive oil, olives, avocados and nuts. They eat very sparingly of red meat and they eat heaps of fish. Then in Japan, they don't eat much fat. They haven't got any olive trees that grow there. But they also have a huge variety of vegetables like they do in the Mediterranean. And they too eat foods that are grown locally. But they just don't have any high-fat foods that are grown locally. So they eat lots of fish and a lot of grains, a lot of rice. They actually do have sweet potato there as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
So I think what's really interesting, they both have a huge variety. At one time, one of the Japanese dietary guidelines was to consume 30 different healthy food items each day. So the Japanese are very focused on small portions and not stuffing yourself. So stopping before you're full.
Do they eat small portions more often, or do they stick to the 3 meals a day?
It just depends. It does depend. They mostly it's 3 meals. I think I'd actually have to double check on that. But they take a lot of time with their food preparation. So they have small amounts, and there might be half a dozen ingredients. If you think of a sushi roll, for example. In the Mediterranean countries, again, it's local produce, what's grown and caught locally. There's many varieties, and every version of the Mediterranean diet for the Mediterranean countries is based on what's grown there. But what they share in common is the big variety of vegetables and fruit, and they share in common an emphasis on fish.
Claire, do you think people get confused when they think about a Mediterranean diet and they go, well, I'm going to have some pizza, that's fine. Or even, I love sushi, I love raw fish, but there are so many options if you go to a sushi bar.
Yeah.
Some of it is good and some of it you look at and think that can't be healthy. It's got to be a westernization. Is that fair that people get confused?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we can't just suddenly eat the Mediterranean diet here or even the Japanese diet here. But again, both of them take time to prepare and store their foods. Variety really is the key, and that is what I would call people on, to focus on having a bigger variety of the healthy food items. And we have this plate model in Australia called the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating. And we have our 5 food groups: vegetables and fruit, lean proteins, lean dairy and whole grains. Try and put in your shopping trolley, which I've said before, something new that you haven't had before out of those basic food items. Take it home and learn how to cook it. And that way it makes you a little bit like the Japanese and a little bit like the Mediterranean, in that you prepare those foods and learn to enjoy them at home.
And we can't say any more that we don't know. You know, if you've got access to a computer, there is so much great information at one or two clicks. It's kind of a furphy to say I didn't know, because there's so much reputable, great information around, isn't there?
When I'm going to give a plug for
Good.
our reputable healthy eating quiz, which measures the variety of those healthy core items from Australian foods and gives you an immediate feedback report, and it's free.
Okay, so Google it.
Yep, healthyeatingquiz.com.au.
Claire, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
There you go, busting the myths around fat, Professor Clare Collins from the University of Newcastle.